You're listening to Happy Hour with Joby and Curtis.
Welcome to Happy Hour, a very special happy hour. I've got Jason sitting next to me. Something that generally he's the guy behind the scenes in happy hour shows.
Usually I feel like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtains.
But what's cool,
I just don't have a dog.
in my oblivious wisdom, when we were playing with hashtags months ago for the show, and I'm like, well, let's use hashtag HHWJC, which stands for Happy Hour with Joby and Curtis.
Sure.
Now tonight it actually stands for Happy Hour with Jason and Curtis.
Yeah, I think we should just say that it's Happy Hour with JC, and we'll just or JC's Happy Hour, and then we'll just go from there. Because at any given point from here on out, we could be switching back and forth, and then if I'm not here, then it's just JJ's Happy Hour.
Well, and we would have such a mass amount of people trying to follow the show. We'd get into a whole new base and demographic. We know how you feel about organized religion, but they wouldn't know that. They wouldn't know that until they saw the podcast.
People would be stumbling upon this.
Ooh, Happy Hour with JC?
JC's Happy Hour? Yes! All
It's
right.
going to be all kinds of sermons. It's going to be just amazing.
Singing and dancing all around,
And
prancing around and clapping. No,
And
I don't
as
think
soon
that's
as you
gonna.
open your voice in your mouth, Curtis, then you're like,
I'm gonna piss
"This
someone
has-
off."
This has nothing to do with Jesus Christ. This has nothing to do with it.
No, that's, in fact, that would be the first thing that came out of my mouth. Jesus Christ, can you believe what's happening here? No, people can't. So, just to get things kicked off tonight, last weekend was the Great American Beer Festival.
We weren't there.
No, we were not. At some point, I've been to it one time. Have you ever gone to?
I have not. I live vicariously through everyone's photographs and tweets.
It is worth the experience to go. I found through my experience, though, that the events happening around the convention are way more entertaining than fighting through 15,000 people trying to get a beer at the actual
Some of the photos from
during
last
the
year,
sessions.
the lines that were in the convention center themselves for tastings at the booths, it just was unnerving.
Right.
Looking through the window pane of someone else's life made me happy that I could go up to this bar right here at Barrel House 101 and order any of those beers that I wanted from the counter.
Well, and I think I painted a really bleak picture, and certainly for some of those superstar booths like Dogfish Head, when Sam Adams, because they'll do their utopias, you're going to have huge crowds, and you're going to spend 45 minutes of your 3 hours standing in line to get one of these pours. And depending on how important it is for you to get your beer poured by Sam or by Jim, then, it may be worth it to you. That said, there are plenty of other booths all through there. I can't even remember how many there were this year. If I looked at my tablet, it'd probably tell me. But there's plenty of places where you can just walk right up and get a beer.
What's really exciting for us is that with the number of shows we've done between the Happy Hour platform tonight and the Pints and Pairings platform where we do our beer and food pairings, we've met a lot of breweries and a lot of brewers. We've been seeing some photos and some great information coming out from people we've met and know and their experience at the Great American Beer Fest. Groundswell Brewing Company being one of them, you commented or liked one of their photos that were posted on Facebook. To see Kevin and his team out there at the Great American Beer Fest and their branding and people enjoying their beer, it's made me smile. Like, we had those guys on our show. We've met these people that are making a difference.
Right. Well, I was one of the things that I found really surprising about this, or interesting maybe, and anyone who's following beer knows that just recently we topped 3,000 breweries in the U.S. That is more breweries than we've ever had before. I mean, there at a point when we topped 1,800, something in that. That was the most breweries since Prohibition. But at that point, there were at some point in the U.S. history, there was just shy of 3,000 breweries in the United States. So the next statement I'm going to say shouldn't be shocking, although it was an interesting. I had an interesting, feeling about it, in that as I looked through the winners, there was no grouping of giant breweries that won this year. And so what I mean is that Stone didn't have a corner market, Sierra Nevada didn't have a corner market, Allagash, Dogfish Head, on and on
There's
and on.
some small
All of
names.
these, yeah. And so as you go through the list, there was a handful of the winners that I knew of, some that I'd heard of, but most of them were breweries that were brand new to me, which is just a fantastic thing as a beer geek to think about that. I could travel all across this country now, go find world-class beer in all of these little places, and all these little breweries are brewing exceptional beer.
Yeah, my brewery bucket list definitely grew this past week, looking at all these unique names. And again, some of the names that we've come in encounter with, through our travels, especially during our San Diego brewery tour recently, where the 2 shows went down. It's, again, really, it's cool to see the expansion of the industry and to think about the fact that from a craft brewing industry perspective, we're still only in 9 or 10% of the market. With 3,000 of the breweries you're referencing, from a micro, nano, and craft brewing perspective, we're still a very small piece of the market overall. So there's so much room for growth and creativity that's coming out right now from the brewing industry. It just blows me away. Like the ingredients and the style and sometimes the getting back to the roots of brewing recipes too, depending on the philosophy of each brewery. What's going to be really fun segue is that same philosophy permeates the adult beverage industry in general. We're going to have on Stephen Gertman, president and master distiller for Ascendant Spirits, talking about some of the products he's bringing out and the creativity that are going into his spirits as well. So I think we're seeing a great surgence of personal profile, creativity, and usage of unique ingredients across beverage industry in general.
Well, I don't even think it's not even specific to beverage industry. Talk about boutique chocolates, talk about boutique snacks, talk about boutique whatever it is.
Do you think that's really being driven by consumers wanting to try the next biggest thing, or do you think it's more tied to just the mass amount of information that's out there about products? Do you think it's, hey, I want to try something totally obscure, or I am now more aware of things out there that are a little more obscure?
Yes and yes. I mean, to take the easy way out of that, you just look at craft beer enthusiasts. When we all want to try the next best thing or the next crazy thing, and I'm always interested in tasting those. That adventurous spirit that I had in craft beer traveled across all of those other industries, and so, but it's I think more importantly, it's just that people are willing to spend money for things that have flavor. Period.
Well, what I think, tying into that and really kind of jumping off from what you're saying, lately I've been finding myself, because I have that adventurous spirit too, I want to taste something that's really unique and different. I've got some homebrewing friends and some people in the beer industry that are saying, go big. They're always searching for the whales. Try what's barrel aged or what's just really over the top. And I do, because I want to be that guy too that says I had that. Mm-hmm. But in contrast to that, it's also making me appreciate more the traditional styles, both on the beer and the spirit side, and some of the classical methods and processes to get to that point, because all these things started somewhere, at a base recipe and a technique, a craft, just to be the leverage on a cliche phrase, but the craft of making spirits and making beer. The crazier I get, the more adventurous I am with those tastes, the more appreciation I have for the foundation that is used as well to get to that point.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you talk about craft, and there's something interesting that happened at the GABF as well, in that I'm talking about these giant craft beer people didn't corner the market on anything, but you start looking at some of the other breweries like Pabst, like Coors, and you start seeing their names pop up throughout here, but in general it's in the light lager categories. And what I find interesting is that some of these Coors and Pabst in particular, they had 2 beers getting 2 different medals in the same category. So Pabst is putting in 2 beers, 2 different names, and they're taking the gold and the bronze in the cream ale section of style guidelines. So, as I'm looking through some of these, the Coors
I'm not
popped
sure what
out.
to say
I don't know
about
if
that.
I saw any. I did not see any Budweiser in here. Crazy, I know, but But
Curtis, you just lay it out there on a platter, don't you?
Well, if Pabst Blue Ribbon and whoever their parent company is, which it could be Miller, and so for them to put out 2 beers, and Coors had the same thing happen.
When again, we're talking about a more traditional style, and a category for them, then I think what we're seeing is popular. I mean, obviously, we've talked about the hipster influence with Pabst in the past, but there is definitely a focus and a highlight on barrel-aged or sour and all these adjuncts and what I consider the top end of the spectrum as we move along our 23 BAGCP categories, kind of working our way from the light lagers and the pilsners up into this other stuff. I don't think there are as many breweries focusing on those lighter classic styles, and so it leaves room for them to take over the gold and the bronze, because they've been doing that style for year upon year upon year. I'd hope that they've mastered that recipe.
You would hope so, definitely. and I totally agree with you too. I mean, looking back at some of the Pints and Pairings episodes we've done, especially when we hit the light lagers, they wrote the category. These are some truly American beer styles, for better or for worse, and they ended up, they wrote the styles, they perfected them, and they can brew them over and over and over again to make the same exact beer every single time, which is nothing short of a scientific feat of excellence. I mean, they really know how to brew their beer. So yes, you look at the categories that they won. These are categories that they brew, and they brew very, very well. Did they win Did they win IPAs? Did they win barrel-aged beers? No, because that's not what they do.
Well, and you know what? You can't be a perfectionist in every category. You can't be everything to everyone. So cheers to them for pulling away some medals in their categories that they are best at. You mentioned that.
Well, I think you should PBR me ASAP. I mean, just to use their phrase.
Yeah, but you won't find any of that in this particular establishment.
No,
We'll have to go outside.
A 16-ounce tall boy can.
I know where we can go, but it typically doesn't start get going until 11:30 or 12.
Okay.
But you were talking about that scientific approach, and again, going beverage industry wide. The replication and the scientific aspects can't be understated, and I think that's a great platform for us to move into a break and come back with Stephen from Ascendant, because distilling is heavily an art form in my opinion, but also there's a certain methodology that must be followed, and there is some science that goes into it. When we're talking about condensing and evaporation and distilling just in general. So he's got a couple of new products that fall in line with the creativity, but also that base and that scientific process for distilling. So I want to.
I'm not sure how we can combine creationism and science in the same conversation. But I think we're going to do it, right?
That's my plan. That's my hope.
The art, craft, and science of. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
That's right. Your eyebrows said it all, and I'm just as intrigued about what Stephen has to say about this.
Well, one of the things, I mean, just on a personal level, is that I'm applying to go to art school, right? And so my art is almost completely, hardly anything comes out of my studio that isn't have some sort of socio-political implication. And so I have been spending really the last 2 months working really hard on it. So I've dived back in, and I've come to grips with my liberal tree-hugging tendencies and the political statements that I must make. And so sometimes I end up making a jump when there is no jump, other than that there is an art and science.
Well, there's going to be a logical jump, I think, and he's going to lead us through that. But again, grabbing onto your art background that you're talking about, there's again a replication that we want to be able to bring forth and discuss with him about bringing these spirits to the market and in your glass. So
sure.
Let's take a quick break, make sure we've got something to drink, and then Stephen will come on and talk to us all about Ascendant Spirits and some of their new products.
Cool. We'll catch you in a bit.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how we...
Hey, thanks for listening to Happy Hour with Joby and Curtis. If you like this podcast, make sure you like us on iTunes. You can also find us on Facebook under Happy Hour with Joby and Curtis. Give us a like and share it with all your friends. We'd appreciate it. Cheers!